Welcome everyone to this second of our four-part series for January. This one's covering LinkedIn. We're going to have 4 events during January covering some of the top tools that you might need as a job seeker in the STEM industry. We've covered resume, we're going to be covering the Seismic platform and interviews in the following weeks. But today you came to hear all about LinkedIn and how to utilize it to learn about roles that are opening up and how to get connected to roles that you would be most interested in. On the call today, I'm Erin from Seismic. I'm going to be leading the presentation, and monitoring the chat and assisting me is Beth, also from Seismic. She's going to pop on during the Q&A period to help lead that. And a little bit about Seismic and why we do events like this. Seismic is a talent matching platform for the STEM industry. But in addition to connecting you to open roles, we also want to provide you with free support like this event to help you gather tools to help you in your job seeking journey, but also to learn a little bit about what kind of roles are out there. But what we're specifically covering today, we're going to take about 30 minutes to go over your LinkedIn profile and how to tailor it to attract roles that you're interested in. And then we're going to stay on the line until 6 o'clock for an optional Q&A period. After the presentation ends, if you don't have any questions, you're welcome to leave, but we want to make sure that we have enough time budgeted at the end to be able to answer any of the individual questions that you might have. And if I cover anything during the presentation that isn't clear or that you want to come back to, go ahead and drop a question in the chat, and Beth will make sure that we get to those during the Q&A portion. Now, a question you might have is LinkedIn really that important? And especially if you're looking to attract recruiters from companies, it really is, because 95% of recruiters say they utilize LinkedIn. And this isn't just for messaging someone and inviting them to apply to an open role. Recruiters will also use LinkedIn to learn more about applicants that they're thinking about inviting for an interview. If they get a resume, even off LinkedIn, off on a different platform, even just through the company website that they're interested in potentially inviting for an interview, they're probably going to go to your LinkedIn to learn a little bit more about you before following up for an interview. So the main goal is going to be to tailor it to show up in more searches for roles that you would consider. And in meeting this goal, even if you're not utilizing it to directly attract job offers, you're also going to meet that secondary goal of having a LinkedIn that looks like you are an eager and engaged applicant who's going to be interested in the types of roles that you're applying for. Looking at your LinkedIn profile, there's going to be a couple specific aspects that we're going to focus on: connections, the about section, your activity, the experience section, education, skills, and interests, or the companies and organizations that you're following. Before you start applying everything that we're going to go through next, I really want you to take some time to consider yourself in this. In fact, this is something not just in tailoring LinkedIn, not just tailoring resume, even before you start applying to roles, this is something useful. You want to ask yourself, what kind of roles do I really want? Either what kind of skills do I need to get those roles that I'm interested in, or what kind of skills do I have that I want to really utilize more of and develop in a role? What kind of products or services am I interested in? What kind of companies interest me? Am I interested in therapeutics? Am I interested in diagnostics? Or am I interested in a large company versus a small company? This isn't about narrowing it down to just one particular role that you would consider, but if you could get a sphere or a bubble of some general commonalities between the types of roles that you would consider, that's going to be really helpful when you go to edit all the next sections. A good way to do this is to find 10 or 15 job descriptions of roles that you would consider. If you were invited for an interview, you would consider the role. Look at all of those and see what are the parallels. Are 7 of them looking for a particular skill set? Are 8 of them working in a particular field? And those are the kind of things that you want to keep in mind before we move to the next sections. A really quick change that you can do right now is to customize your LinkedIn URL. If you go to the edit your public profile, you should also have an option to edit your URL. LinkedIn assigns you one. It's usually a mix of your name and a lot of numbers. If you can edit it to be a little bit shorter and a little bit more closer to just being your name, that's a good place to start. It's going to be more easily searchable. When you put it on a resume, it's going to be easier for someone who's looking to learn more about you to find it. On the recruiter side, if we're looking for someone and we're getting search results, it's important for you to know what actually is visible to us. And in addition to your photo and your name, there's only one thing that shows in the search results, and that's your headline. The photo, you don't want to stress about it too much as long as it's professional. There's no, I would say, general like accepted format other than a professional photo. You do want to include a photo because it does make you look more like an active profile who is open to being reached out to. But the headline is where you can get really, really creative. A lot of headlines I see are fairly static and fairly current, and those aren't necessarily bad. Things like graduate student in cellular and molecular biology or postdoctoral fellow at blank university. Those are descriptive, but if you're actively job seeking, I would encourage you to add a little bit something about what you want to contribute in the future, something a little bit forward facing. For example, say you are interested in tissue engineering, or a lot of the roles that you've pulled are in that general field. Writing something like biomedical engineer interested in contributing to tissue engineering. Biomedical engineer is descriptive enough. I have a baseline idea of what kind of skills and qualifications you're bringing, but I also get a sense of what you're interested in. And if I'm sourcing for a tissue engineering role, I know right up front, oh, there's likely to be some mutual interest in this person. LinkedIn at its heart is a networking site. That was what it was based on. And networking is really important. In fact, most job seekers get their jobs through some form of networking. Again, this is not necessarily someone directly reaching out to you and saying, hey, my company is looking to fill a spot on this team. I think you would be a great fit. I really encourage you to apply. These are also roles that you hear about more informally through your network. Someone in a team is posting, hey, my team is hiring, my company is hiring, here's the basic skills that we're looking for. If you meet these, I encourage you to apply. Here's the company website. Not all companies, especially smaller ones, are going to post their jobs widely on job boards, and job boards can take a while to sift through. So if you curate a network of scientists or engineers who are working in roles that you are interested in, you're going to get more information about those either hiring plans right now, or if they're posting about their company expanding, likely hiring plans in the future. You're also going to get access to industry knowledge. What are they interested in? What is their company having them promote? What does the company see as important? These are also helpful when you're going into things like in-person networking, all the way from tailoring a resume to an interview stage. When you reach out to make connections, you typically do want to include a note. That's kind of best practice if you don't know the person well. It can be a note about the event that you might have met them at or where you saw them speaking, or if you haven't had a previous connection with them, a note about what about their profile drew you to them, and a note that you would like to be connected. It just goes a little bit extra step to show them that you're someone who actually wants to connect with them, and not just that you're sending out connection requests to everyone. The About section is kind of like the summary section of your CV or resume. And even though it is all about you, you want to think of it when you're actively job seeking less as a biography and more like an ad for yourself. So looking at those 10 to 15 roles you would consider, think about it as what key accomplishments of yours or what future goals related to those roles are going to be most aligned or most attractive to someone in that position. And also for your About section, you only initially see about a couple sentences of it before you click See More. So in writing it, you want to make the most use of those first couple sentences so that if they don't click See More, they still have a good indication of your qualifications and interest in this kind of sphere of roles that you're interested in attracting, or that they're enticed to click that See More. For example, if you're looking at your 10 to 15 job descriptions of roles that you would consider, is there a skill like flow cytometry that shows up in several of them? That would be a good thing to mention in your About section early. Maybe it's not a technical skill that there's a lot in common between similar roles. Maybe it's a particular therapy or a particular tool they're working on or a particular field of interest. Closing with something like this, hoping to develop early detection of tools for cancer diagnosis, if this kind of oncology detection tools are a commonality in the types of roles that you're looking for. It can be a little bit broader than this. It can be a little bit more specific. It just comes down to looking at the roles that you're interested in. How broad are they or how narrow are they? And then tailoring it to be not just about you, but about what you want. I know not everyone's comfortable with making their own posts on LinkedIn or social media in general. And the good news is you don't have to make your own posts, but you should have some occasional likes or comments on others' activity, because it's a good way to maintain those connections in a less time-consuming way. It's a good way to indicate to employers your interest in them as a company, your connection to other employees. But you also want to make sure that what you're interacting with maintains a level of professionalism. There's a downside to it in that about half of employers state they've rejected a candidate for social media posts. This isn't just things that are very obviously offensive. Things like bad-mouthing a former employer can also reflect negatively. So focus on the positive, focus on interacting with what you like and what you're interested in. For writing the experience section, it's not too different from a resume, except on a LinkedIn, you can include a lot more experience than you can on a 1 or 2 page resume. But you still want to focus on answering some key questions. And these are questions that a hiring manager, that an HR representative, talent acquisition recruiter is going to be looking at your experience section to answer. They're going to be looking to answer, what can you do? Where have you done it? And how successful were you at it? And this comes down to skills, sector, and positive outcomes. The sector or where you've done it will usually be pretty easily answered by the company or the university or wherever your previous position was. But in writing what you've done, you want to focus on the skills and the outcomes, similar to a resume. For an example, manage rodent colonies, you're including some of the skills. These are skills that are going to be coming up a lot in the type of roles that you're applying to. For example, in vivo research associates, or senior, for this one, associate scientist roles. With the highest pup survival rates since company inception. There's a positive outcome. Not only have you utilized a skill, but you've utilized it really effectively to create value for your employer. And the positive outcomes don't need to be that big. They can be smaller positive outcomes, but you do want to show that you contributed something with the skills that you were utilizing. LinkedIn also has a separate section to list all of your skills. This is really helpful because you can't really list everything in your experience section and make it easily obtainable for someone who's scrolling up and down your LinkedIn. So you want to prioritize in the about section and in the experience section, listing the top sought skills for the roles, the ones that are most in common for those types of roles that you're applying to. But then take all of the others, the kind of nice to have skills that you have, and list them in your skills section as well. This is because not listing all of these skills can prolong employment by up to a year. Because a lot of times, especially for STEM roles, when we're going on to look for potential people to invite for an interview, to invite to apply, we're going to be looking for skills keywords or field keywords. So you want to have those listed to be able to show up in that initial summary of however many people LinkedIn returns as a result. You can also have people endorse you for skills. If you're in a lab right now for technical skills, I encourage you to ask someone to endorse you for a skill. You can go up to someone and say, hey, you've seen me do ELIZAs many, many, many times. Would you please endorse me for this skill? And most of the time, people will be happy to do it. When it comes to interests, and especially with job seeking, the name of the game is to follow the lead. So any company you might be interested in, but also professional organizations that you like. Maybe you're really, really interested in cell and gene therapy, and you're not specifically looking for any one company or even companies in any one area, but there are professional societies focused on cell and gene therapy, and you can follow those professional groups as well. That just helps people see that you really are invested and interested in this field of study. You'll also be able to hear about job openings from those companies, but also some of their advancements. Do they have a new drug candidate that's moving into clinical trials? They'll probably post about that. Did they just successfully raise for a new round of funding? They're probably going to post about that. Are they posting about expanding into a new facility? They'll probably post about that. And those kind of things can be indicative of a likelihood that they'll start hiring in the near future. And then, to start looking at them a little bit more closely, keeping a little bit more tabs on them. Now, again, not only does it show your genuine interest, but it also can give you insights that can lead to you seeing those openings at the right time, right place. LinkedIn also has a feature under the job preferences where you can actually switch it to say that you're open to work. Just indicate that you're ready to start working soon, that you're actively applying, that you're actively looking. Thing to note, LinkedIn cannot 100% guarantee that someone at your current company won't see that you're looking. So if you're only passively looking, you're just kind of interested in seeing what else is out there, but you're not completely committed to leaving your current company, maybe don't turn that on. You can still utilize everything else that we've covered, and you'll still likely get outreaches. Recruiters, HR will also reach out to people who are currently working at a company, even if they don't have the open to work. But if you are able to set that, there's some interesting changes you can make here as well. One is job titles, writing in what kind of job titles you would be open to. It's going to be really helpful if your previous experience might make someone think that you're looking for a particular kind of role that you're not. For example, if you've mostly worked in bench roles, you've mostly worked in research or wet lab, but you want to move into a non-bench role, putting in the job titles of the non-bench roles that you would consider lets me, as someone who might be looking to hire someone with a lot of STEM experience for a non-bench role, know, oh, this person has the right background in science, but they're also interested in moving away from the bench to apply that to a non-bench role. Or if you're specifically looking to move up the ladder, it can let them know I'm only interested in career moves if it comes with this particular title. Just lets you be a little bit more specific if there's a need for you to be a little bit more specific. If you're only open to remote work, make that clear as well. Location is interesting. I see a lot of people put location just as their current place of work, even if they would be open to relocation. So if you're open to relocation and you want to potentially hear about other roles in other regions, just to get a sense of what else might be available, I would set it to as broad as possible. You can set it to anywhere, like anywhere US, anywhere in the world. But if you need to get more specific, for example, if you need to relocate to be closer to family, if you're relocating to support a spouse or a partner in their relocating for work, if you need to find work in a particular region, you can set the location to an area that you'll be moving to ahead of time so they can see, okay, even though you're, say, in Boston right now, you're going to be looking for work in the Orange County area in the next couple months. You're still probably going to get some outreaches for roles that you're not that interested in. You still want to respond to those outreaches quickly and politely. You gently decline the roles that you're not interested in. Sometimes it's still worthwhile to talk to some of the people that you are reaching out to about roles you're not interested in, just to be able to ask them, what about my LinkedIn stood out to you and made you think about reaching out to me? Can give you insight on maybe what you're doing well on your LinkedIn and what you might want to change a little bit to not attract the roles that you're not interested in. But that recruiter might have a role that you're interested in the future, and bad communication does get noticed and shared. As I mentioned, even if you're not looking to directly get job opportunities through LinkedIn, you're not looking to be directly connected to a role by a recruiter, you're mostly using other job boards, you're mostly submitting directly on company websites, it's still worthwhile to do the work to tailor your LinkedIn a little bit, because a great LinkedIn does boost your chances of an interview. It shows how interested you are in a role. It's able to provide a little bit more information about you than a short resume does. So do the work, update your LinkedIn profile, just take a couple roles you might be interested in, you might have applied for, you might be applying for in the future. Have those in front of you, looked at your LinkedIn and see, do you see parallels between what you've done and what the role is looking for clearly? And if you don't, make some small changes to your LinkedIn. You don't need to redo it all at once, but changing up your headline just a little bit, changing those first couple sections of your about statement, adding a couple more skills into your skills section. They're small changes that can really make a big difference.